Hey guys, welcome back to the review. It's another episode where we literally review the game. We got Meteos here to answer all the questions while Crumbz and I just ask him random stuff. This time we've got a Group B matchup, FPX versus Splyce, because both of them moved on to the quarterfinal stage. Are you guys surprised by that?
Absolutely. Splyce?
Well, Group B?
I thought J-Team looked good in the first week.
I don't know. I think these are the only teams I had heard of from Group B. I'm going to be honest. So I expected them to get out.
All right, we'll go ahead and dive into Champ Select. This was a pretty interesting game with the Renekton mid and all that stuff, but we'll get there.
All right.
This is the tiebreaker, so there's a lot on the line. I mean, you could say that both these teams definitely are showing all they've got here, because first seed to second, knowing that only Korea is first seed, matters a lot.
I mean, they were the first group to play, so it wasn't quite known yet, but at the same time, Splyce beat FunPlus just a minute ago, or earlier in the day, so it was really kind of possible that they actually beat them here and took first seed.
What do you think about FunPlus's bans? They seem a little, not completely standard. They're popular champions, but not champions to see banned all the time.
I think what surprised me was like the main bot lane meta is Kai'Sa Xayah, and so you ban Xayah, which made me think it was going to be first pick Kai'Sa. Then you ban Nautilus, which is also the common ban with Kai'Sa, or the best support with Kai'Sa in a lot of lanes. And then they don't take, with that ban, I'm just like, wait, so you're making Kai'Sa kind of weaker, so you don't want to first pick it, but then you ban Xayah, which is what you could have picked in response. The whole thing seemed a little weird to me.
I mean, it already obviously we know what was selected, but you have to at least imagine that they have something prepared for the bottom lane. And without that information, I would say maybe they're thinking about mages in the bottom lane, or just something that the tournament has had in the bottom lane instead of a normal carry.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why. I mean, I don't know. I can see the Rise first pick for them just because it is one of Doinby's best champions, and he's been great on it all year long. But it just felt, maybe they thought Splyce would third ban it instead of the Qiyana, and then when they saw they got it, they just picked it away. As well as, I think Splyce played it a game or two as well. So it's all these are good picks. I think it's just the bans that make it feel weird to me.
Yeah, well, I think you were onto something with the Nautilus ban, because maybe you're not as scared of Kai'Sa if she doesn't have Nautilus with her.
Sure. So either way, the Renekton that they lock in is another common first pick that you see a lot of teams doing. So I still think FunPlus's early picks are all strong and fine. I just wasn't super sold with exactly what they were going for when they ban out two parts of the most common bot lanes.
I really like this move though, because they get the Renekton, and you can take Renekton Elise really quickly and already give it away where you're putting your solo lanes. But if you take the Gragas instead, now you just crap on Syndra as much as you want, and you don't have to worry about helping the side lanes as much. You have an actual place to keep coming and keep getting some kills.
Right, I thought the Syndra was a little weird here, just because I think normally in drafts you would see jungle 1-2 on red side. It's a lot more common, but showing Syndra, it seems like they almost just expected that Rise to be mid, because Syndra's only really ever flexed mid or bottom, but if you take Kai'Sa with Syndra, then it's pretty guaranteed to go mid. And so that kind of lets FunPlus just get the lane matchups that they want.
I don't know how that matchup is now, but I know before you were happy taking Ryze into Syndra, because you can just face tank all her combos, because you just have so much HP. You can build MR easily. You got rushing Merc Tread. So I don't even think Syndra's that good of a matchup into the Ryze if you're not planning on abusing him early with a strong jungler.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep, Splyce goes for a double marksman ban, which for the most part I like. I assume that they were trying to force FunPlus onto Ezreal, because that seems like what the meta says is the second best champion, or excuse me, third best champion in bot lane, and they didn't ban it. They banned Lucian and Varus instead, so they're getting rid of things that would have, I think, priority in the bot lane. They don't want to, they want to be strong bot lane because they have GP, which is trying to play weak side in the top lane. So I think that's what they're going for with their bans. And then of course FunPlus is targeting junglers, and they leave Elise up, which once again probably is another conscious choice, because I can't imagine, that's also what a lot of people see as one of the best junglers.
I saw you tweeting this out, Meteos, and I feel the same way, because I think Elise is garbage here, because these three are already too tanky for you. For the Elise to have any semblance against it when you already have a mage like Syndra mid, where it's just too easy for that duo to itemize MR, because if it's Ryze or Renekton, they rush Merc Treads or any MR item, you're not going in that lane.
Yeah, Elise is pretty weird here. I really hate Elise. Like, I think the tweet you're talking about is when...
Wait, she's your favorite?
No.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
Let me continue.
All right, my bad.
I hate Elise when my team is too much magic damage.
Yes.
Because like you said, if you're Syndra at least, like obviously those champions both have a lot of burst and CC, but that also means they're kind of countered by the same thing. You know, every mid laner is going to take Cleanse, Merc Dreads. I mean, obviously not in this game because they sent Renekton mid. That's kind of a different situation, but in more standard matchups.
Well, and the other thing too is they don't really have a front line, and if Splyce were hoping to get front line from their jungle, Olaf and Rek'Sai are two of the best ones in the meta, and so you're kind of forcing them to stay squishier with those bans, and like you're saying already with Elise not being that great into their pick.
Such a weird pick. There's not a tanks here. What are you doing?
I'm really surprised at the lack of Jarvan this whole tournament because like Jarvan was one of the highest contested junglers coming into Worlds, or you know, not Worlds, but playoffs leading to Worlds. And then I don't even think he was nerfed in the patches leading up to Worlds, and then he's just kind of disappeared.
There was only one team that was actually getting it banned against it. Team Liquid, rest in peace. They are the only ones that are playing it.
True meta breakers.
I mean, someone figured it out.
I think he's just the meta pick. I do think Jarvan would have been really good here, especially when if the enemy team shows a champion like Ryze. Any champion that does not have a dash or jump over the Cataclysm, it's just so much pressure. Anytime your flash is down, you have to respect Jarvan flash EQ ulting you and his team following
Good
up.
with Syndra too, so I could definitely see Jarvan making a dent.
All right, this game, we also have the Vayne. I think this might be Vayne's first pick of the tournament. It was definitely a surprise to me, just because I'm such a Vayne hater. Most of the time I see it picked, it's in really weird situations where they're like, it's good into Sivir, I can 1v1 her, and then Sivir just goes even in lane because it's fine for the early levels, and then someone breaks first turret, and then Sivir sits mid the whole game, and you never get the 1v1 chance. Kai'Sa's maybe a little different, but I would also be concerned about that happening. But there's a lot more focus on what's going to happen in the early game in the top side anyways.
Vayne is the only champion that is single target. No other champion in the game targets only one champion with every ability.
In the entire game?
In the entire game. Everything else, they have some AoE, some sort of AoE.
Interesting.
The only one that you could argue would be like Trundle, but even Pillar is AoE.
I've never thought about it, but
I've never thought about it, so I'm hesitant to trust Crumbz with anything.
Here, I'll tell you what happened, because I did a show with Locodoko, and
right-ish.
he proposed that to me, and I thought about it, and I was like, there is no more. So now I'm bringing it to you guys.
Yeah. I mean, you might be right, because I really can't think of a counterexample, but there's also 130, 40 elite champs. And
tons of AoE. Even in this draft, everything.
What about Gragas?
You know what? I've seen him.
Actually, no. All of his stuff's AoE.
Oh,
my bad.
Literally everything. His drink isn't.
Yeah, it is.
No, the actual passive of healing. I mean, his passive of healing himself is not AoE. That only targets himself.
Got me.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
He's a big boy, though.
The other thing that happened this game, returning to reality, is the Renekton flex mid last second, which was kind of surprising to me. I think it was probably because top lane's a better matchup for the Ryze, and they wanted to pressure with that.
Yeah, I do know that one reason you don't see GP blinded that often is because of this Ryze matchup. It's, from what I've heard from a lot of top laners, basically unplayable for GP. And in this game, it doesn't really go that way, but it did seem a little weird for Splyce to opt into this matchup, knowing that it's kind of a counter.
You know, speaking of the new Ryze, I actually noticed that playing against him, the change from the root having to be a slow first with you have to apply the flux, almost makes it feel like he has even more tools to his disposal now, because he can either slow you or root you, depending on the situation. So I think he's actually just gotten even stronger.
Is there a situation where you'd want to slow someone more than you'd want to?
Well, like you can just use your spells freely, and you don't have to worry about the other person coming at you. Because at worst, you have a slow, but you have a root if it really comes down to it. So
but
against Gangplank, you just start W. He can't come at you, which is the thing he does level 1 all the time, right? He's trying to, and yeah, you would have a root before, but it's still viable.
Yeah, I mean he's fine, and I think the mid lane matchup, I don't think it should be as bad as it went this game. I think Humanoid really struggled because Renekton using double E, you can always, as Syndra, you don't even need a ball down. You can just push him off and he won't get in range. But what they do really well is they work really well around mid lane to blow Humanoid's flash, and Going B always trades flash for flash.
Ooh, this was actually kind of a pretty big mistake from Ryze here, letting GP get on him like that, because I was watching this game with Dokla, and he was telling me, like, this is the only way Ryze can lose the matchup, is if he lets GP bush cheese him, and that's what Vicious did. So, well played on his part.
Man, that slow made sure GP didn't get on it.
I mean, the grass GP is just such a lame thing to go up against because you're healing every time, you're getting stronger, and you don't do anything. There's no outplaying. It's just in and out of the brush, point click, no skill.
Yeah, and I think Gimgoon doesn't mind not getting the shove early because Gragas is clearing down away from him, and you're probably assuming the Elise is clearing up. So, I think you do kind of want to play more neutral lane than if you're super aggro pushing or something with E spamming and crap like that. So I think it's largely fine that he didn't dominate early, but it is a little, like you're saying, you don't want to take that chunk at all.
Yeah, well, it's kind of I'd say it goes both ways though. You don't want a hard push because, if you don't have jungle help, it's kind of bad to let your wave get frozen. But at the same time, this is actually worse. What ends up happening is
the stacked wave.
If you let them build up a wave on you and you get dove, because this is kind of BG for Rise here.
If you lose this whole wave, yeah.
Yeah. And Splyce doesn't even play the dive particularly well. They miss the stun.
Pew.
And, it still works. It looked like they had a lot of room to make that dive happen. So, it's a really good matchup for Rise, but if that happens, it's not quite as good.
Understand.
Unideal.
Yeah. We can go ahead and pull up the CS so we can see, exactly what the impact was. He has to blow his TP to get back, and I think GP can run back or does he TP back here?
Depending on the wave, you'd want to.
Looking at the wave, it should be fine to run back here because you see it's going to meet on Rise's side, which means it'll push toward GP.
Right.
I really would have liked for this play for Elise to either chuck out the spiders to to kill the minions and then go for the cocoon or something, because that just Doinby should not have gotten out of that. Yeah, there's still a flash. You can find an angle on it.
I was gonna say you have double flash on your jungle or mid, so you can probably find an angle. But maybe they felt scared chasing because they know Gragas is on the bot side somewhere.
I feel like with the the health that the Renekton was at, though, you're playing a tiebreaker. This is the time to go hard.
True. Yeah, I don't fault him too much not going for that because, based on what Elise did early, it's pretty guaranteed that Gragas will be in that bottom jungle.
Yeah.
And if you see Renekton running away, not toward his own turret, but into your own jungle.
Oh, I don't mean flashing
if you're
for
Splyce.
that there. I'm suggesting flashing during the stun of Syndra to get the cocoon on him and kill him right there before it can move.
Right. Yeah, it possibly could work.
Yeah, I think I would never want to trade my flash on Humanoid to do it, but if it's just the Elise who has to flash to find the kill, it's probably fine, because I think Splyce has the scaling advantage this game pretty heavily. The Kai'Sa I would prefer in a team fight situation. GP is a little close, but just this feels like a game that FPX wants to crush early, and if you can get the flash on the enemy mid laner while keeping it on yours, that allows you to play so much more aggressively.
That's interesting. So how does Splyce deal with Rise split pushing later in the game? That's what I see as one reason why Splyce might not just directly outscale, because eventually Rise will reach a point where he can just dive GP.
Yeah, I meant based off how the top thing happened, because top should be going in their favor, but the fact that they get that early kill is I think helping neutralize the threat that Rise would be. As well as just team fighting, yes, it does put pressure on you to have to force fights mid, but if you can find engages.
He goes for the play now when it doesn't work, but doesn't see it earlier.
Yeah, I see your point though. It's not like it's a direct outscale. There's options in FPX's lineup to do things beyond just front to back team fight. But
right,
I think your play against the Rise would only be Kai'Sa trying to flank him, right? I don't think you can collapse with anybody else.
I mean, Kai'Sa can collapse. You have TP on your mid, so if you ever collapsed Humanoid and got a kill, and then FPX is forcing on the flip side, you can double TP. But those are really sad plays to be going for. You'd rather be forcing mid and hoping to win a 5v4 if Rise doesn't TP.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to catch a face rush Rise when you're setting up with a GP, just because GP has no way to actually lock him down for other people to get on him. That you'd have to really find a good angle.
Yeah, so I think what Splyce, if this game went quote unquote normal and Gimgoon won top harder than he does here, and then Splyce has to worry about a split push situation. I think that's where you're looking about how can we start fights around mid lane to get the TP advantage off him so then he can't split push as aggressively. Right. But that's not how this game goes. Instead, they force, this is a really important play in the game where they force this blue buff contest and get a fight off of it.
Yeah, I thought this was really smart by FPX. I think it's just recognizing that Splyce's jungle and mid's flash are down like they just used them. So pretty much taking any fight involving the junglers and mids should be, advantaged for FPX.
Just Renekton at level 6 is kind of like the new Rumble. If you go fight in the jungle against him that early, you need a really good reason to take that fight because otherwise he will wipe you.
And I think what happens next off the reset is really where Splyce start getting in trouble. Oftentimes when you lose a fight and you don't have vision control somewhere, on the reset you want to go back there and drop some vision, but instead Xerxes goes top right away to start clearing his jungle and then tries to do something about Gimgoon and goes for another gank. And in the meantime, they have no vision on the bot side of the map or bot river or anywhere, and FPX does. And so while Xerxes is able to find this opportunity, which is good, you see them kind of pinging like, oh, they're probably on Dragon, they're probably doing something else. What they really do is they go mid here with 3 men and punish Humanoid, and they focus on getting Snowball as opposed to getting objectives. And so this is great by Xerxes, but the punish is this. They had no idea where anyone was by FPX off their reset.
Right, I think the read that Splyce went for here was that FPX is probably on the Ocean Dragon.
Yeah, they pinged it a couple times.
Yeah, they did ping Ocean, and I think as a team, they probably just collectively decided, all right, guys, that Ocean's gone. We can't contest it. Let's send Elise top because they probably won't expect him to be there at that time.
Yeah.
And we'll give them Ocean. But pretty interesting for FPX to not take the Ocean and go for the mid play.
Right. In Humanoid, you can say like, oh, he doesn't have flash, and he doesn't have vision. He should have played further back. But I mean, it's hard because
how far back can you go?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I don't know. That felt like. Like you're saying, Xerxes tried to do something, and I don't fault him for that. I just think you can see the downside of what happens in that play is you never went to get vision control before going for another play. And these are like, we talked a lot about the G2 like skipping steps kind of thing. And this is one of the downsides. It's like now your mid starts getting snowballed on really hard, and Doinby starts spilling over to bot lane and doing all these other things for the rest of the game, and just completely takes over.
You can't even salvage mid at this point with Merc Treads on the Renekton. You can't even gank him anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty rough situation to be Splyce. So one thing that I thought was a little weird in this draft that we didn't touch on earlier was the Rakan, which was last picked. Correct?
Yeah.
So that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because I know that Thresh is a good matchup into Rakan. It's usually picked into Rakan just because he's fairly squishy. Thresh has multiple ways to cancel his dashes, and it kind of makes it so Splyce has no real front line. Like anyone on Splyce that walks into fog where the enemy could be camping is probably getting one shot.
Who would you rather see?
Yeah, I was about to ask. I mean,
Not was out.
Nautilus was banned. I think
that was the only support.
Rom is usually never bad.
Right, because at least you're good against Gragas and Ryze.
Yeah, you can't go Alistar. It's so bad against Vayne and Thresh. So that's kind of been one of the other supports we've been seeing a little bit is Alistar, but I don't think you could take him here realistically.
Yeah, I guess
flash tree. This time
it.
flashes, yeah. And this is so good by FPX, just making sure that they get him before his flash comes back up. It's like, you can see 20 seconds away or something.
Yeah, he's way overextended again.
Yeah, way overextended there by Humanoid.
Yeah, but at this point, if you're Splyce, how do you prevent that from happening? It is kind of what you have to ask yourself because you just don't have the tools. If you match numbers with FPX, I don't think you're ever winning that fight just because, even if you hit everything on Renekton, he's not dying.
I think your only play is Elise has to find the Gragas before the play, and Syndra has to collapse on the Gragas as well, because you can't go on Renekton, so the only other person you can kill is Gragas.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think that's something you can really force. I think that would just have to be a mistake by FPX.
Yeah, I think going back to what I said earlier, just trying a little bit harder before he was 2-0-1 or whatever he was. And some of that you can't do much about, but getting vision control to make sure that they're actually on the Dragon so Humanoid knows when he can lane and when he can't lane. And then by this point, you're under your turn. Like, what do you want me to do? They have flash, I don't, I'm dead.
Right, I thought this was really interesting too. I know, at least in North America, Ocean Drake is the most prized thing. If you see Ocean Drake as the first dragon, everybody
6-minute fight for it.
Yeah, your top laner is walking down with no TP at 5 minutes for it. It's just you're throwing everything for it. But FPX, even with they had multiple opportunities to get the Ocean, they just seem to not care about it that much. They prioritize the plays onto the mid lane and even the Herald afterwards. So it looks like they just really have a game plan of trying to get Syndra extremely behind, and they're sticking to that.
Is that how you feel about Ocean Dragons as well?
I think it's broken.
So you're in the camp of just send everybody.
Oh yeah,
down there.
everything,
Okay.
everything for the Ocean Drake. Because also people tilt when they're up against Ocean.
Yeah.
If you're a laner and the enemy laner gets a 5-minute Ocean Drake, you just mentally check out.
Yeah.
You're just phoning it in.
Do Google Hangout for this bot review, guys. Not coming in.
Yikes. That's another great force around mid lane to break the turret this early, and now Renekton is just everywhere.
Can we say the gold for mid laners here?
3K lead?
2K
Almost
lead?
2K lead on a Renekton into a comp like that. A squishy comp that doesn't really have any way of killing him. That's not a good time.
It's a pretty immobile comp. Elise can kind of repel the things if they're around. Syndra can't really move. GP has oranges, and the Rakan's mobile, I guess, and Kai'Sa can kind of jump away. But a lot of that stuff is kind of conditional, or you can just get killed through it. Or
no one survives a Renekton combo.
Yeah. Right. It gives FPX such a massive zone to play with. If they ever get vision control and Splyce has to respect, where they can be, they're just under a lot of pressure because one misstep is just you're dead.
Yeah, and here Doinby doesn't even care that they have vision control or even mid pressure. He just goes bot and he's like, get off the wave, Kobe.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about this a little bit with G2, where one thing that I like is when these teams just recognize that they can give up stuff to make a play elsewhere. Because Doinby doesn't seem particularly phased that Syndra is getting a wave, getting a couple plates. He's losing a wave because he's 2K gold up. One wave's not going to make the difference.
Yeah, Syndra's not going to suddenly become a threat because you gave her 200 more gold than she should have at this point.
Yeah. So
if you're just sitting in lane or something.
And now he's pretty much just controlling the entire map. He just full rotated bot, came back mid. Now he's rotating toward top as well.
I think a lot of this too was what people kind of expected more out of FPX coming into the tournament. Doinby has been a great facilitator for the team in China, and he has a lot of interesting picks to do it, and he's a very, I think, selfless player. And so this is kind of what people were expecting out of them all Group B, where yeah, they play around mid, and Tian and him are a great combo, but then a lot of it's about how they abuse whatever advantages that they can find mid lane.
I think it's so hard for a lot of the people watching Worlds though to make fair statements about specifically the Chinese teams, because I'll believe them when they tell me that they watch the Korean teams, but when they tell me, yeah, I know all about FPX, no, you don't. Hey, you watched the playoffs of summer, right? Nobody has really, except the experts of the regions, tracked exactly what these teams have been like for the entire year.
That's true for some people.
You watched every FPX
I
game.
did not say that. Here's my source on all things LPL. Azael watches them all the time.
Okay.
And he'll come in and he'll be like, Mark, last year he was like, Mark, IG is the greatest team ever. The Shy is the best player ever. And this was way before.
So he saw it coming.
Yeah, he saw it coming.
As soon as they won Worlds, he knew.
No, he knew this. In spring, he was hyping them up, and in summer, he was hyping them up. And he did the same thing for me with Doinby and FPX. And so I do, whenever he pops off about something in the LPL, I'll always go and watch a game or two to see what's going on with them. I did not watch every game. I'm not saying I watched every game of LPL, but I got put onto the Doinby hype train by Azael. This is sick, dude. Get out of there.
Yeah.
And that's the only place on the map left for Splyce where they can kind of force the plays.
They should have been going there the whole time. This guy has no Merc treads. I think he would have been free for a while.
It's really hard though, because FPX has so much pressure on Splyce that as soon as they see Elise not there, it kind of resolves the pressure. And as you saw, the turret went down pretty much immediately.
Can we go back a little bit, Graham, actually to see who moved first? Because you also can't really go for these plays.
Oh, I mean earlier. At this point, you're just taking what you can get. But would you not have liked to have seen Elise make more return visits to the top lane?
Well, I think they kind of were reacting to some of what FPX was doing. And so, here, mid lane gets blown, and they kind of know where the Gragas was, I think he got seen on a ward going into the jungle on that ward, and they have another one there. So that's the only reason they can go for this play is because they can see, and they're doing it in reaction. I think they lost their kind of brute force window when after the blue buff situation, and then after the top force, because from then on, if you just show your Elise topside like Meteos is saying, like you're so doomed on the bot half of the map.
Right. Like usually the way that you can look at plays is you think about plays in terms of waves when you think about the timing. So think about, if you make a 1 minion wave play on top side, kind of like they did, I don't think you're guaranteed to kill Ryze by any means. GP doesn't really have that great of kill setup. If you know Elise is coming, you'll never die to it. So Elise would have to find a window where they don't know he's coming, and you can get on him, which I think is a really low chance. And then in that 1 wave window, like, Splyce is losing their entire base, guaranteed.
Yeah.
The turret will just drop immediately. You can't really fight them at all. So I think it's really risky for Splyce to try to go top.
Yeah, this was they try to force a play bottom and they get the TP first. I thought Chachi could maybe go a little bit more aggressive here. The TP starts coming in though, and they kind of get into this 4v4 situation. But GP doesn't really have any setup, and they already used their ult, so I get it.
This is just such an awkward comp to try to fight with if you're Splyce. You don't have like
DPS.
Yeah, or lockdown,
set up
or frontline.
Yeah, you're basically like, you're a pick comp. Elise and Syndra have always been like a super powerful pick duo, but when you're behind and you can't get vision control and force them to walk into your skill shot CC, it's really hard to chase forward with those two champions, which is what they were doing there.
Yeah, so I really think this game is super hard for Splyce to play based on how that mid matchup went and the champions that they have.
Yeah. No one can defend against the engage. Like when you see how FPX wants to get a fight, which is either a hook or a flank or a Gragas, no one on Splyce can actually defend and survive against that. You can't even disengage. There's just nothing for you to get out.
Yeah,
where Splyce has, somebody can easily tank the entire engage from FPX or from Splyce, and then the fight continues.
Yeah, knowing how the comps interact is super important beyond just like, both Gragas and Elise are AP kind of squishy junglers who can kind of build stopwatch for survivability. Like, Gragas serves people to his team. Elise doesn't. Elise stuns them and then is like, get in there, boys. And it plays so different when it's like, okay, I've stunned the Vayne, now run through Renekton to kill him. Versus like, I've ulted the Syndra back into you, Vayne. Please just auto her. The setup, even though they both have CC and they're AP and whatnot, like it's night and day in a team fight.
Oh, definitely. And Elise is always she's never really been known as a team fighting champion. Yeah. I'd say the only time you're gonna really have a good time in team fights as Elise is if the enemy team cannot itemize MR, because once you get your Oblivion Orb Sork boots, that's generally enough damage to one-shot any champion that has not built Magic Resist. But if they have Merc Treads, you no longer have that threat, and you kind of just like sit there throwing little spiders around.
Yeah.
You're a cocoon bot.
Exactly.
I miss Tank Elise. When you built what was that item called? Spirit of the
Ancient Golem?
Ancient Golem, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good time.
Yeah, that was peak Meteos.
Cooldown boots.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part though, I like Splyce trying to trade objectives and find opportunities on the weak side, like here, going just for a turret trade because they can't really defend top lane and stuff.
They've got dragons to stay laning for a while, so they're probably just thinking, hold shit down until we get at least Rageblade on Kai'Sa.
I just think the FPX's, just non-priority on dragons is really interesting, because they definitely could have gotten both of those dragons if they wanted them, but they just chose not to.
Yeah. Do you think that was a mistake?
I think dragons are pretty good, personally. I don't think it takes a whole lot of effort to get them, so I think it's probably worth. But at the same time, if you use a window to go for a dragon, like I was talking about before with the waves, that does give Elise a window to maybe get a playoff on Ryze, and so they want to have more pressure than just a dragon. They want to be threatening like tower dives nonstop.
It's definitely more snowbally to do what you're talking about, and you lose some of the late game insurance. Where like, if this game goes bad somehow for FPX, you don't have we'll get an Infernal Drake because we have 4 Drakes, and that's super strong now. Like, Drakes are not only immediate early game power, they're also late game insurances if you can still contest Elder Drakes by the time they start spawning.
Yeah.
Dragons like Ocean, though, I think might be less relevant to them with these champions because the Renekton's going to be healing up in the mid lane. Vayne doesn't really use mana. And, I mean, yeah, obviously, but she's not a mage caster carry, so I think maybe there's just less emphasis for this specific comp on the Ocean Drake.
What about the top lane matchup?
I was going to say...
I think for split pushing matchups, the sustain can be pretty relevant, you know, because before you reach the point where you can just flat out dive the GP on like a one minion wave kind of play, you're going to be trying to chunk them out.
So I agree.
Ocean will give them a lot of sustain.
I completely agree that it's a big difference in the split push, so I just want to see how does it affect Gimghoon versus Chachi, because if it clearly plays into it, then I think you have to say that FPX made a mistake.
Yeah, and it would definitely help Gimghoon too, because you can not only trade more effectively because Chachi's not healing up, but also Chachi can still kind of poke out the Rise. If you land like a barrel chain and a couple procs, you'll start out sustaining. You can take more like less beneficial trades that will heal up later.
Yep, definitely.
Here's the good old mid lane Vayne. Dude, I just can't. Like Vayne, when I watch games where Vayne wins, I'm like, you did literally nothing this game, Vayne. Like,
she has 3 assists. What are you talking
She's
about?
got more farm than Kai'Sa.
And that has
you said farm was the problem.
And it has nothing to do with the spillover of Doinby in the mid lane. Dominating.
Absolutely
No,
nothing.
Nothing to do with, you know, Kobbe being forced back off his turret numerous times.
This trade looks pretty good for...
Flash Q.
For Humanoid.
Yeah.
Not bad.
That was really fast, so that stun dash with ult.
I thought Doinby was going to win this when I saw this until the Kai'Sa showed up. And even then, it's like, maybe he can do it.
If he got
it one more.
An empowered Q probably would have been enough to win that.
Yeah.
Okay, not win, but kill Durkhan maybe at least.
And if he heals up a little bit, yeah.
I think you get the whole, all of it. Get the stun on Kai'Sa, do it again, because he has Shojin proc, so he's getting everything.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
And
then this is the thing you're talking about, the split push situation being pretty brutal. You're trying to force these plays, and in the meantime, Gimghoon's just trading on Chachi the whole time.
Yeah, I guess what's really interesting for me about the way FPX plays is that it's just not standard by what we're used to in North America, because in North America, usually it's pretty, you know, step by step as far as what you want to do. So at this point, it would be like FPX would probably want to establish a vision control in Splyce's top jungle, be threatening the Baron, but they just don't really seem that interested in that kind of thing. They're just kind of
Let me ask you
YOLOing
something.
it.
Should we be interested in keeping things the way that
Are
in NA?
Is this the
Right, 'cause
how do you fix NA Meteos question?
Yeah, you're saying, oh, the way we're used to in NA. I don't know, man, but I'm used to a lot of things that don't seem to win.
Well, that's a fair point. I don't know if it's specifically only NA plays this way to a fault, but it's just kind of seems like the normal macro play, and I think a lot of Korean teams make those decisions as well. Just kind of playing for zone control, playing to pressure objectives, and force you to face check into a zone where like you don't have vision.
Renekton's so strong.
Oh, they took it.
Yeah, this was a bit of a scary play. One of those ones where Crisp is like, I'll trust you, dude, but like...
Go in.
You're like, all right, I can't send you in alone. I guess I'll go too. Most important Drake for them to pick up. They grabbed it. So, I mean, FPX clearly still prioritizes zone. This was a rough game for Humanoid.
Yeah, he's for sure
Why
right
is
down.
he even there on the corner?
Yeah, there's safer paths to get mid than that. Humanoid overall had a bit of a difficult group stage. He had some good games, but he's going to need to step up, I think, a lot in their quarterfinal matchup
So
versus SK.
his Akali was really good, and it was banned, so I think that's part of it, right? Taking these players off their comfort zone when they're new to the world stage probably has a substantial effect on them.
Do you think he should have went cleanse this game?
Mid?
Yeah.
At least barrier.
Oof.
Barrier? Maybe. I don't really know.
I don't know either, because FPX kind of has a 1-3-1 setup going in. You know, I'm sure Splyce was talking about that. And having a TP in mid for early lane stuff, as well as being able to maybe find some answers to 1-3-1s, I don't hate it.
You know, I think actually cleanse might have been best because you're up against Rise and Renekton, and it'll work against both to keep you safe.
Oh. Goodbye, Tian.
See ya. Yes, but I think like Mark was saying, if you remember back to the first time SKT and RNG played each other, it just kind of showed the downside of not having 2 TPs on both your solo laners, because if you're up against a comp that can do a 1-3-1 against you, it just becomes extremely hard to deal with that split pressure, because unless you can guaranteed hard force on mid lane, which it's not always the case, you're just going to start losing a lot in the sides.
Yeah. I mean, you also don't know mid's going to go this... Like, it's kind of...
Yeah, it's either Renekton or Ryze, though, and both have crazy kill pressure on you with Gragas.
Yeah, but, like, the thing... Gragas feels bad to take cleanse into, in my opinion. Like, and if you're, like, an ult back, you have to cleanse, flash it off, and even then, like, if you do it a little slow...
Does it feel better than 1-5-3 right now?
Yeah, if you could tell me I could not be 1-5-3 with a single summoner choice, yeah, I'd probably take that. But I also think, like...
Yeah, I mean, it's you could definitely run into different issues if you don't have TP. So it's not just strictly better.
I think you just have to
But it is
play
a consideration.
around whichever style you want to go for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, hell, you could even run Ignite and then just try to camp mid and you get the 2v2, because if you're there first, maybe it'll work.
That's the aggressive route.
Goodbye.
But hey, maybe it could work.
Chachi is a little far up there, all things considered. But, oh yeah, Gimgoon just doesn't have TP here.
Yeah, FPX seemed pretty down for this 4v5 though.
Oh man, look at that bang pop off, I mean.
Doinby's hard carrying this one.
Yeah, Doinby is an absolute monster. That was a...
4v5.
All things considered, yeah, it's a 4v5, so I like trying to brute force that.
Where did he put that realm warp?
He put it to mid lane to transform minions to push potentially and meet up with Doinby, but I think they were just like, let's just reset, dude. I'm pretty sure that's what he was thinking, is if I ult this wave down to mid lane, we can push. And then he's just like, screw it.
Yeah, I don't know if he had vision on where Elise and Kai'Sa specifically were.
They have a fair amount of bot lane vision, but it's just like...
Yeah,
I think calling it off is the right move. Like, you're asking your 300 health Renekton to come in.
I just wanted to see the realm warp. Like,
yo, man, we need this tier 2.
Yeah, you're like, I don't think we need that. But I like the force even without the TP advantage, because like they kill Chachi, then they fight a 4v4, and then you're wasting their whole time, and Gimgoon gets a free push. So I like the riskier play that they're going for. The super, like, we don't have TP, don't pressure that hard with Baron.
I do like the way FPX plays. They just seem to... They take a lot of risks, and that doesn't seem to deter them whatsoever. You know, like, that play bot, sure, that they killed Vizichachi right away, but they did still invest some cooldowns into that, and it was a blatant 4v5 that they took.
You can see what they are gaining, though, with each of the risks that they're taking. Like, it's not just a random, hey, this could work. It's, hey, if this works, we're going to get a lot out of it.
Yeah, it's not like a super random 4v5 while your Ryze is at your, like, top inner. You know, like, he had pressure, so if Splyce contested that fight, then at least you know you're getting objectives on the top side. Which is something, it's a good distinction to make.
We have seen a lot of people not do that. That's what I'm going for.
We have seen some people force, like maybe a certain North American team in Group A who also had a split push comp that pushed way too far up in the mid lane before Licorice had I gave it away. Darn it! I was trying to...
Any team with Licorice. It could be anyone in Group A.
It was Licorice on his desk. It was a can... I don't know.
Yeah. Twizzlers.
Something like that. This was... What do you think about Splyce overall, though, their whole group's run? Because this is, at this point, a little hard to talk about from Splyce's perspective.
Easy group.
Yeah, I definitely think that if you look at all the groups, theirs was
every
the
group,
weakest by far.
Literally, you could make an argument for all other 6 teams being the world champion, and that would be like, okay, I could see it. Only FPX from this group. So
yeah, I guess
like
Europe's just lucky.
And I think, but they actually did beat FPX in a game. They forced a tiebreaker. They could have gotten out number 1 in this group. So I think Splyce looked better than a lot of people were giving them credit for, because people expected FPX to 6-0 this group, and then like Splyce to only get through based off beating the LMS and Vietnamese teams. So I don't know. I thought Splyce looked a little bit better than they would.
Don't you think they thought all about the FPX getting first and Splyce simply from the records they had in the regular season, because it's just hard for you to believe that, yeah, LPL first seed will struggle against LEC third seed.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that, especially with how Splyce looked in play-ins. They did get like the level up experience of play-ins, but it still would have been hard for me to believe pre-tournament. Yeah. But then FPX looked really bad in their loss versus J Team, where they kind of like just LWX turbo entered a lot of the fights. But then the time that Splyce beat them earlier on this day, I thought it just looked more like Splyce was actually playing well than like FPX's griefing.
Yeah, I think after watching the group stage, I still have like a lot of questions for Splyce about how they're going to do for the rest of the tournament, because like you said, Unicorns of Love took them 5 games in the play-in stage, and they've looked kind of pretty hit or miss, I would say, in the group stage. Week 2, they did very well. They pretty much won out. But they've had some games that they just looked all over the place.
Especially like in a lot of the mid-game situations, like a lot of their Barons over the course of this have been super suspect. They've thrown some games despite having leads. And like the game that they beat FPX was like a big snowball. And so against SKT, who is, if they're known for anything, it's being unbelievably hard to close out games on. They like with Faker, at least they've always had like this like, well, he could always just land a shockwave and come back in the game. And I think that's a huge hurdle for Splyce in their matchup.
I mean, I think if Humanoid is not running it down here, this could be a very different game. It's still somewhat close. The Kai'Sa's online. That spillover really slowed down a lot of Splyce's early plans. So if it's the matchup against SKT and he can hold himself against Faker, why not? Why not take a game?
Part of me wonders how different this game would be if there were different AD carry champions, because I feel like Splyce has, arguably the strongest AD carry champion, and FPX has Vayne, which, up for debate, but probably not that good.
Even if you had Ezreal, right? Like, what does Ezreal do with this kind of pressure that LWX was given? You're walking up at people, you're pressuring them with Qs, you're chunking them out under turret in 1-3-1 situations. Like Vayne doesn't do any of that.
You can hit the sideways with your ultimate. You got magic damage that you can splash in.
Yeah. This Vayne pick looked like one of those picks that you just go to because you didn't expect to get pinched as hard as you did.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, shit, guys, what do we pick here?
The coach, LWX, what do you want here? Vayne? Okay. That's what you want, bud.
No, I bet the coach just takes off his headset, lifts the headset off the support player, and just tells him, just do me this favor, man. Just lane with him. Get us through.
Yeah.
The Vayne definitely...
I mean, you're saying that, like...
Little questionable.
That is close. Oh.
That could be a Baron.
That was a good pick off.
Oh,
what do they do with it? Do they hard force, or do they have to? They try and react? Yeah, they try and use this to react to game beginning.
Really would have liked to see a Baron force here.
It would be an option. I think no matter what option you go for, it's probably going to be a little hard.
Yeah, it's tough.
But I do think Baron likely would have given them a better setup.
Right, because I would say like that's a play that gets you 300, 400 gold, whatever. The Baron potentially gets you back in the game.
Yeah, and you have Gangplank ult that you can always count it on to zone.
I think you probably TP in, right?
Yeah, but like you have it for a Baron fight when they could contest you.
Yeah, exactly. So like you should use your barrels and GP ult to hopefully zone away and just 50-50 a Baron. Because without, from here, you pressure mid, maybe you could have got mid turret or something. But now your Syndra doesn't have TP.
Or Flash.
Yeah, or Flash. Whereas if you just brute force Baron and TP the GP in, then you're maybe getting back in the game.
Yeah, I could see Splyce taking that fight too. At this point, Kai'Sa's really strong, and being able to stack up the Gwynsu on Baron before turning or opting to finish it is pretty big spike on Gwynsu champs.
Yeah, and it's still super hard. Like, I
mean,
it's stuck in a pit versus a Renekton is terrifying, but like Vayne doesn't walk up to those kinds of situations very easily.
Right, but you're in the world champion. You're trying to win. You're trying to make the game-winning play and get the most that you can out of it. The most bang for your buck. I mean, taking down Gimgoon does not seem like a way to come back. It's like 0-3-1 Riot. That's all he's doing is split pushing against GP.
And to be fair, at least they brute force something with their advantage. I know a number of teams would probably
Do nothing.
Yeah, like, oh great, now we can get vision and stall out a little bit more. The fact that they're like, no, let's make a play, and now they go for it. But Tien's back on the map, and yeah, it's just a lot harder to do.
I think Gragas is the scariest pick for them out of all the FPX champions from his disruption and the lack of mobility on.
If you were doing Baron,
yeah, if you were doing Baron, like I would rather deal with everybody else, but having to deal with a big cast.
Yeah, and this is definitely a hard situation where I think Splyce's champions don't feel very good when you're in this spot. It's kind of like you want to hit Baron enough to force them to walk into you, but not so much that you're all debuffed and you start a team fight while you're tanking Baron.
Yeah, like Elise, Syndra, GP is really nice when people are walking into you, but you don't have anyone who's on the Baron and like easily tanking the damage.
You're asking for Gragas' feel. Way more burst here too. No tank for you to stay alive, so
yeah,
it's surprising to see them try this now.
I think it's just that they finally got some vision control with the pickoff on Tien, and using that vision control, they tried to force FPX to walk into them, which I think is fine. But
wow, they're just giving that up.
Yeah, their minion waves are in a really bad spot because they tried to force the Baron.
Yeah, obviously it didn't work for Splyce, but I think it's just a situation where there's not that many good plays.
Yeah, like what's the better play? What's the higher percentage?
You got to try something. If you just sit around not attempting anything, you're probably going to lose. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff you go for, it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, FPX was smart. They had Doinby for the most part in the front line, their tankiest guy, and as soon as he saw a Syndra Ball, he would E backwards and make sure he didn't get like chain CC'd in 100 to 0 without pressing ult. So like, they played it well. FPX didn't, like, they checked with the right people, they played it slow. Splyce doesn't stay on Baron that easily, they get kind of chunked out from it. I don't know. I like what both teams did there.
All right, also, at this point in the game, Renekton's full build, so this is like those solo games where you're like, all right, guys, he can't get any stronger.
Yeah.
We will start catching up.
We're scaling from here, boys. Yeah, Syndra still is down a full item.
And the Kai'Sa's full build too, though, and she can definitely take some of the tank.
I think this is when they Rise Realm Warp on top. Yeah. Oof. Never mind, they won the fight before the Rise Realm Warp came through.
Doinby is pretty much 1v5ing this one.
Yeah.
Like every stun is a death.
So this is what I was going to say was another option you can do if you ever get the flash out of Syndra, which they blew on the bot side play, is you just start the Baron, force them to walk, and then just Rise ult on top of her. And she's pretty much dead.
Right, pretty much you have a lot of different ways to start a fight. I think any champion on FPX actually is capable of starting a fight that can't be disengaged. Like you get Condemned, stunned, you get Gragas ulted in, and if that fight starts poorly, you pretty much just lose the game.
Whoa. See, how did you predict that they're going to lose the game after?
Well, you see, Mark, this is a review. I've already seen the game. I know what's going to happen. So it's not really a prediction.
Wow. All right, well, that does it for this game.
After rewatching this, I'm a little worried for FPX.
You think so?
Yeah. I did not think that was as clean as it could have been with the leads that they got in mid and going up against Fnatic. Nemesis does not run it down often.
Yeah, I do think they had weird macro plays.
Right.
It didn't seem like they were, extremely fast or disciplined at getting, the normal zones we'll see, where you just walk into the jungle, place down your 4 control wards, and, make it so the enemy team can't do anything. But at the same time, it seemed like they worked around what options that Splyce had, and they were able to consistently come out on top, even without playing that very, clean, controlled style that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I mean, even with Syndra having a bad laning phase, some of her pathing mistakes and like being too far up in top lane to get engaged on, like with Nemesis, if he doesn't do that, does Fnatic come back into the game?
Because I just saw windows where FPX could lose, but then at the same time, because there's such a different style, is that just going to catch somebody else off guard and not knowing how to deal with a mid laner that then you can just afford to make those errors that somebody could come back into the game if they knew how to deal with your draft.
Yeah, I mean, Fnatic felt to me like a pretty early game dependent team. It's hard to say because they basically, aside from the clutch gaming game, they won their other early games pretty heavily and snowballed. And then in week 1, it's kind of like I can't even reference that. You're using Garen Yumi.
It doesn't count.
It's not. You're not going to pick
playing
that.
League.
Yeah, you're not.
You're playing Garen Yumi.
Yeah, you're playing like a point-and-click shooter game or something. Like
Sona TK.
Like a twin-stick shooter with those guided missiles.
Did you see the name that the Koreans gave it to the new nickname for Garen Yumi? It's Cat in the Tower.
Yeah,
Cat in the Tower.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. It feels hard to reference Fnatic's mid to late game decision making when their only wins we saw were relatively snowbally, aside for, like I said, the Clutch Gaming one, which was super back and forth. And then week one is hard to reference. So that said, who do you think is going to win Splyce? Or excuse me, FPX or Fnatic first? We'll say that one.
Ooh, that's tough. I'm kind of inclined to go with FPX. I don't have a good reason for it.
It's clearly because you hate Europe and you're jealous of their success.
Yeah, I'm a salty NA fanboy.
Got it.
That's it.
All your mid laners are European.
Not to Monte.
He plays with Crown.
All right, not soon.
What about you?
I'm going Fnatic.
I'm going Fnatic
yeah,
too.
I think I like Fnatic. I don't believe in the team that's drafting Vayne.
That's a fair point.
I'm going to guess they don't play it again. I think for me it's more...
They were pushed to the brink, and they're like, all right, we'll show you what we got. And they're like, Vayne. You're like, not liking what you're selling.
Well, you need to shred that front line of Elise Rakan.
Yeah, I'm going at Fnatic. I believe in them. I think Nemesis has quietly been a top 5 mid laner this tournament.
He solo killed Faker.
Yeah.
That puts him number 1.
That was like splat. It was like a bug flying into a buzzer, you know? The Akali just inting under the turret. Yeah.
Oh, he forced it.
Yeah. He saw the opportunity, just unlucky.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So then on the flip side, Splyce versus SKT.
Oh, Splyce, of course.
I'm gonna go with SKT.
I'm going SKT.
Really? Okay.
Are you being serious?
No, of course.
Okay.
SKT's gonna roll. Listen, it's beautiful to me that Splyce takes SKT so that Fnatic and G2 can get further into the tournament. So if this is a world where LEC wins Worlds this year, you have to give credit to all 3 teams because they kind of threw themselves down the path to block all the tough opponents to make it easier.
It didn't block them, though. It just delayed them. So if Fnatic or G2 wins Worlds, that means they probably beat SKT somewhere along the way. So
yeah, you delayed it. Listen, you delayed it.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, let us know any feedback you have. We're definitely listening. We tried to make some improvements for this week. If you just don't like us, well, that's a bigger problem because we're going to still be here. So hopefully you have other feedback than that. That's going to do it for us this time, and we'll see you guys for the next episode.